This is a story by Karen Solvig Anderson called The Kindness of Lo Mein. My friend Marcy and her boyfriend Brian recently ate dinner at a local Chinese restaurant. As they enjoyed a plate of lo mein, engrossed in conversation, a hand reached down and ushered away their platter of noodles. A voice quick and agitated mumbled, "Sorry," and a thin, poorly dressed woman left the restaurant with their plate of lo mein. In astonishment, they watched her walk down the street, holding the plate with the flat of her hand as she stuffed noodles into her mouth, slapping sharply against her face. The owner realized what had happened and darted out the front door, chasing after the noodle thief. He stood firmly in front of her, blocking her way and grabbing a side of the plate. A struggle ensued. Noodles slid uneasily from one side to the other, slopping over the edge. He surged forward and pulled with a heroic strong arm attempt to retrieve his plate. The woman's fingers slid from the plate. Noodles flew, then flopped pathetically on the sidewalk. Left empty-handed, with soggy, contaminated noodles at her feet, the woman stood with arms hung dejectedly at her side. The owner walked victoriously back to the restaurant with the soiled plate in hand. My friends were given a new heaping plate of lo mein, although they had already consumed half of the stolen plate. A stream of apology in Chinese came from the proprietor. Unable to eat anymore, they asked to have the noodles wrapped up and set off to see their movie. A block later, they happened upon the lo mein thief. The woman was hypercharged. She simultaneously cried, convulsed, and shouted at a man who rapidly retreated from her side. My friend, unsure about what to do, listened to her boyfriend's plea to just walk away. But she didn't. Instead, she walked over to the thief and said, "We haven't formally met, but about 10 minutes ago, you were interested in our noodles. They gave us some new ones. Are you still hungry?" The woman nodded and extended her bony arms. She took the container in her hands, bowed ever so slightly, and murmured, "Thank you, you're very kind." What makes us walk away from discomfort or stay? You could say a lot about my friend's story, a lot about generosity, kindness, attention, and thievery. I'm more interested in what motivates us to confront that which makes us uncomfortable and makes us look at the guts and grit of decisions, the choices to not address things that are uncomfortable, uneasy, unbalanced, unnatural, unbelievable. When our foundations start to shake, we can feel the tremors move up our legs and into our torsos. And we want more than anything to make it stop, anyhow, anyway. My friend Marcy could feel herself shake. I know because she told me so. But she chose not to walk away. She dealt with uncomfortableness. She held firm in the muck. Sometimes that's all we need or can do to get to the other side, the side where foundations are firm and stable, where generosity, comfort, and kindness reside.
Now it's time for Wonderland. Thank you, Linda. Good morning. I am Mary Lamb Shelden, she, her. I've titled my remarks this morning, Attending to the Inner Teacher, and I want to start by saying a little bit about what I mean by inner teacher. In the story Linda just shared, the author, Reverend Karen Anderson, is curious about what allows us to stay in discomfort, to attend to what is within us and act accordingly. Rather than follow the more comfortable route of listening to outside voices, urging us toward some unexamined norm. Some might call that thing in this story Marcy's conscience or her intestinal fortitude, but especially as we witness Marcy learning in this story, many might say she was attending to her inner teacher. The wise teacher, sage, or mentor is an archetype, a recurring, deeply ingrained element of myth and fable, so pervasive in our stories that it is widely thought to be representing something fundamental to human experience and personality. So take a moment to notice, when I use the words wise teacher or sage, what image comes to mind? Do you picture Gandalf or Dumbledore? Maybe Yoda or Obi-Wan. Maybe you see LeVar Burton or Rita Moreno or Mr. Hooper. Maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The sage is one of Carl Jung's 12 major archetypes, manifesting in an individual as they successfully mature, but also widely manifesting in the culture and throughout a person's lifetime. Joseph Campbell identifies the appearance of the mentor as an identifiable stage in the hero's journey, which he understood to be a kind of underlying form, sort of like a template, though subconscious, giving rise to diverse legends throughout history and across the globe. Significantly, Campbell used the hero's journey monomyth as a basis for comparing diverse religions and their scriptural stories, in which the wise teacher makes frequent appearance. And again, Campbell sees the wise teacher in myth and fable as representing something fundamental inside us, something about not only human experience, but also human personality. In other words, this figure is central to our storytelling and myth-making because we need them. While the importance of the figure of the inner teacher has been widely acknowledged by important thinkers over many centuries, by everyone from Socrates to Brené Brown, there are significant differences in how they conceive of it, especially in terms of where it resides or where it comes from. Many UUs know about the inner teacher through the beloved educator Parker Palmer, raised in the Quaker tradition, who conceives of the wise teacher as a representation of the inner divine, a spiritual conception of it as innate to humans. Socrates, in contrast, whom some credit with the first naming of this figure, thought of it as simply the sum total of his own learned wisdom, a more psychological conception of it as acquired. I think it's helpful to understand that we need not believe in God the Father, or even God as something else altogether. We need not believe in God to appreciate the importance of the inner teacher. Theism is not antithetical to, but also not necessary for, understanding this figure. And we can think of it as either innate to us or as acquired over time, or both. It puts me in mind of a friend, a UU, who, having begun a 12-step program and needing to describe her higher power to her group, decided to use her own Catholic confirmation name as the name for her higher power. I always thought this a beautiful representation of how the inner divine is both inherent and received. Maybe you're already acquainted with your inner teacher. Perhaps you are already fast friends. Or maybe you've never imagined them. As part of our service today, I'd like to offer an exercise, a brief guided meditation to help you meet them or see them again. You can think of this meeting as a path to renewal or just as an inward reflection on your life adventure, a way of representing yourself to yourself. If you would, please just sit facing forward in your seat with your arms and legs in a relaxed position. Close your eyes, or if you prefer, lower your eyelids to look at a spot on the floor or a seat back in front of you. And then just please pay attention to your breathing as you inhale and exhale. Notice for a moment how your breath sustains you, whether you are paying attention to it or not. And allow yourself to experience gratitude for this natural rhythm of your life. We're going to take a little journey in our minds together, so I want you to know, if you end up someplace you don't like, don't stay there. If that should happen, go somewhere else in your mind, someplace that makes you happy, or come back to this room and open your eyes. Now, with eyes closed or lids lowered, picture a place of learning. It can be indoors or outside. It can be a place you know or a place of your imagination. It should be a place where you feel relatively free to be yourself, a place where you can share your imperfections and challenges. Now picture in this place a teacher. They may be there already, or perhaps they'll be arriving shortly. They may be older or younger than you, someone you've known, living or dead, or someone of your imagination. They should be someone with whom you feel ready to learn. Introduce yourself to your teacher and let them know you are glad to be here in this place of learning together. Now let your teacher know that you are thinking about the season just passing and the season soon beginning. Might be a season of the year or a season of life. Take a moment to reflect on the season most recently behind you and what may be coming to you in the season ahead. Now ask your teacher for a word that will help guide you in the coming season. They might write it on a chalkboard, in the sand or the snow, or whisper it in your ear. However they deliver it, once you have received your word, thank your teacher for this gift and hold it in your mind for a moment. How does it resonate? Then thank your teacher for meeting you in this place, and know that you can return to this place of learning anytime you wish to visit with them. Then when you're ready, recall this sanctuary, feel the support of the chair beneath you, and open your eyes. I'd like you now to take a moment to turn to someone near you, maybe one or two other people near you. You don't have to share anything if you don't want to about your place of learning or your teacher or your word. You can if you wish to, but you don't have to. But regardless, maybe just share a little bit about how it was to do that exercise. Was it easy? Happy? Was it challenging in some way? We'll take 3 minutes total for this conversation, so make sure your partners get a chance and you get a chance to share. And I'll let you know when a minute has passed, and again at 2 minutes, and again when your time is up. Raise your hand if you need to find a partner. One minute. Two minutes. Make sure everyone gets a chance to share. That's 3 minutes. I did. It's 3 minutes. 3 minutes has. Wrap up your conversation. Welcome back. Hello, everyone. Hello. Good morning. So, now perhaps you've met your inner teacher, or sage, or mentor. Meditation is one way to reach this important figure, or in quiet reflection with others. Perhaps like the conversation you've just had. And I imagine there are ample opportunities for such conversations here at Tree of Life. Other means, according to Palmer, include reflecting on poetry or stories, from some of the great spiritual traditions that raise critical questions about our lives, journaling, walks in the woods, and all the ways that human beings have of becoming more reflective. As a lifelong UU, I have been doing a version of this meditation for my whole life, since I was 6 years old. And I have led other UUs in this and other similar practices over the course of my life, and they have often reported to me significant learning experiences with other church members. Our young people, for example, often point to their religious education teachers, mentors, and other congregants they've encountered. My inner teacher often appears to me as my grade school science teacher, Arita Taylor, who, as it happens, was also a UU at my home congregation. And our adults also find their inner teachers represented by those around them here at church. Indeed, I have heard from our religious educators more times than I can count how much they learn from the students they are teaching. And this is hardly to be wondered at, as they deliberately put themselves in conversation with young people who bring so much wisdom to the discussion. This is sacred work, friends. What an honor it is to occupy the place of wise teacher in one another's minds. Our congregations build very special relationships, perhaps most deliberately in our religious education and faith formation programs, but in many other places as well, bringing us wonderful gifts of learning and self-discovery. Maybe for some of us, especially for those of us who think of our beloved community as our higher power, or who think of God as love itself, our inner teachers collectively, in conversation with one another, are a good way to think about the holy, or the divine, or God. My inner teacher teaches me, but also ultimately you. Your inner teacher teaches you, but also ultimately me. When we learn to be quietly reflective with ourselves and one another, there is so much deep learning we can do. Together we gather wisdom from within ourselves and from one another as we grow to become more loving. I want to close my words today with this important thought. We are always, in everything we do at church, teaching one another about what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. Whether in or out of class, in worship or at coffee hour, in moments of public witness, or in our committee meetings, even at our annual congregational meetings, we are teaching one another about our faith. May we proceed accordingly. May we tend to our inner teachers, our own and one another's, so that wisdom guides our experience here with one another and peace finds a home in us. May that wisdom help us to move through discomfort toward respect, compassion, kindness, and love. And may we find ourselves centered, grounded, and prepared to face together in our shared wisdom, whatever the future may bring. Taking Chaplain Dave's advice again. Our second story today is by Father Francis Dorff. The Messiah is among us. A monastery had fallen on hard times. It was once part of a great order which, as a result of religious persecution, lost all its branches. It was decimated to the extent that there were only 5 monks left in the mother house, the abbot and 4 others, all of whom were over 70. Clearly, it was a dying order. Deep in the woods surrounding the monastery was a little hut that the rabbi from a nearby town occasionally used for a hermitage. One day, it occurred to the abbot to visit the hermitage to see if the rabbi could offer any advice that might save the monastery. As he approached the hut, he saw the rabbi standing in the doorway as if he had been awaiting the abbot's arrival, his arms outstretched in welcome. They embraced like long-lost brothers. The two entered the hut where they sat quietly for a time and then spoke quietly of deep things. The time came when the abbot had to leave. They embraced. Then the rabbi said, "You and your brothers are serving God with heavy hearts." He said, "You have come to ask my counsel. I will give it to you, but you can repeat it only once. After that, no one must ever say it aloud again." The rabbi looked straight at the abbot and said, "The Messiah is among you." Then for a while all was silent. The rabbi said, "Now you must go," and the abbot left without a word and without looking back. The next morning the abbot called his monks together. He told them he had received counsel from the rabbi who walks in the woods, and that the teaching was never again to be spoken aloud. He looked at the group of assembled brothers and said, "The rabbi said that the Messiah is among us." The monks were startled by his declaration. When the other monks heard the rabbi's words, they wondered what possible significance they might have. The Messiah is among us, one of us, here at the monastery? Do you suppose he meant the abbot? Of course, it must be the abbot who has been our leader for so long. On the other hand, he might have meant Brother Thomas, who is undoubtedly a holy man. Certainly he couldn't have meant Brother Elrod. He's so crotchety. But then, Elrod is very wise. Surely he could not have meant Brother Philip. He's too passive. But then magically, he's always there when you need him. Of course he didn't mean me. Yet supposing he did. Oh Lord, not me. I couldn't mean that much to you, could I? As they contemplated in this manner, the old monks began to treat each other with extraordinary respect, on the off chance that one of them might be the Messiah. And on the off chance that each monk himself might be the Messiah, they began to also treat themselves with extraordinary respect. Because the forest in which the monastery was situated was beautiful, people occasionally came to visit the monastery, to picnic or to wander along the old paths, most of which led to the dilapidated chapel. They sensed the aura of extraordinary respect that surrounded the 5 old monks, permeating the atmosphere. They began to come more frequently, bringing their friends, and their friends brought friends. Some of the younger men who came to visit began to engage in conversation with the monks. After a while, one asked if he might join, then another, and another. Within a few years, the monastery became once again a thriving order, and thanks to the rabbi's gift, a vibrant community of light and love.